All right, today we're going to take a look inside a really comprehensive resource, Addiction and Recovery for Dummies. We're going to dive into what it offers and really lay out the map it provides for what can be a super complex journey.
I mean, it's the big question, right? It can feel completely overwhelming, whether you're dealing with it yourself or trying to help someone you love. The whole topic is just so vast and emotional. So, yeah, where do you even start?
Well, that's exactly what this resource is designed to tackle. Think of it like a roadmap, a reference guide you can just pick up and turn to for clear, straightforward information. And it's written for two groups of people, the person who's actually looking for a way out, and all the family and friends who are right there with them.
So the book breaks this whole journey down into 5 main parts. First, we'll get a handle on what addiction even is. Then, we'll look at those crucial first steps toward getting help. After that, we'll explore all the different treatment approaches it covers, what life in recovery actually looks like, and finally, why this guide is so useful for absolutely everyone involved. So, first things first, before you can even begin to tackle a problem, you have to know what you're dealing with. The book's very first step is to bring some real clarity to the language we use.
Right away, the guide cuts through a lot of confusion by breaking down these terms. There's a big difference between use, which is basically just experimentation, and abuse or dependence, which is where you start needing something just to feel normal. And then you have addiction itself. That's the irresistible compulsion to keep going even when you know it's hurting you. Just getting that distinction straight is a huge first step.
And what's really important here is how broad the scope is. It's not just about what you might traditionally think of, like drugs and alcohol. The book gives equal weight to behavioral addictions, things like gambling, the internet, food, even work. These are things we're realizing are incredibly serious, and they're all covered here.
Okay, so once you have a clear definition to work with, what's next? Well, the book moves right from defining the problem into taking action. This next part is all about those critical first steps. And the process it lays out is super practical. It starts with helping you look at risk factors, like your family history. Then it gives you actual signs to look for. From there, it helps you figure out how ready you are for change and talks about that tipping point, that moment when a person finally says, okay, it's time. All right, now we get to the really big part, exploring the huge landscape of treatment options. This is where the book really shines as a kind of catalog, laying out all the different philosophies and methods that are out there.
Something the guide points out, which is so important, is that how you view addiction can totally shape the kind of help you look for. So it breaks down the big perspectives. You've got the disease model, which sees addiction as a chronic illness you manage. Then there's the cognitive behavioral model, all about how our thoughts drive our actions. And the learning model, which says addiction is a learned behavior that can be, well, unlearned.
And within those different ways of thinking, the book gets into the nuts and bolts of care. For example, it defines inpatient care. This is what a lot of us picture when we think of treatment, living at a facility, getting intensive, 24/7 structured support in a safe place. And then, on the other side of the coin, you've got outpatient care. This approach has a lot more flexibility. It lets you keep living at home, maybe keep your job, all while going to scheduled therapy and support sessions. But it doesn't stop there. The guide then unpacks a whole toolbox of specific approaches. You've got the classic 12-step programs, but also non-religious options like smart recovery. It covers professional therapy, medical stuff like detox, and even alternative treatments like meditation. The real takeaway here is that there's no one-size-fits-all solution. There are options.
Okay, so you've started treatment. What now? That's what the next part of the book is all about. Life in recovery. This is about the real world, about navigating the daily challenges of building a brand new life.
And to kick off one of the most important and often misunderstood parts of recovery, the book uses this really powerful quote from Bill Moyers. It completely reframes relapse, not as some kind of moral failure, but as something that can happen with a chronic condition, just like a disease like cancer going into remission and then coming back. So how does the book help you deal with that? It's all about giving you a practical toolkit for those tough moments. It breaks down the difference between a slip and a full-blown relapse, and it gives you real strategies for spotting your triggers, learning from what happened, and getting back on your feet without beating yourself up. And it's not just about managing relapse. This section really gets into the nitty-gritty of rebuilding your life. We're talking about mending relationships, dealing with money problems, and just building up the skills you need to handle life's stresses in a new, healthier way. It's about tackling those everyday fears head on.
And finally, the guide zooms out to address something that is absolutely crucial. Addiction doesn't just affect one person. It doesn't happen in a vacuum. A whole section is dedicated to being a resource for the entire support system, all the family and friends. And the advice it gives to family and friends? It's not just be supportive, it's clear, actionable stuff. I mean, look at that point about letting go of the need to control the situation. That is so powerful. It's about shifting your focus from trying to fix the person to helping create a healthy space where they can choose recovery for themselves.
And one last thing about how to use this book, it's not a novel. You don't have to read it from page 1 to the end. It's designed as a reference guide. That means you can jump right to the chapter that you need right now, whether that's about treatment options or helping your loved one or what to do after a relapse. It's meant to meet you wherever you are.
So in the end, that's what this book is. It's a map. It can show you the terrain, point out the potential dangers, and highlight all the different paths you can take. But at the end of the day, it's up to you to actually take that first step. So the question this guide leaves you with is this. Now that you've seen the path, what's your next step going to be?